Sodom and Gomorrah, two legendary biblical cities destroyed by God Himself because of their wickedness. The story of the cities parallels the story of the flood in Genesis on the subject of God's wrath caused by man's sin. These two cities are often mentioned in the prophets and in the New Testament as symbols of human wickedness and divine retribution. In the Quran, we also find a version of the story of the two cities. Only one man and his family were allowed to escape. Everything else was devastated. But why are Sodom and Gomorrah facing God's implacable wrath? How serious were the sins committed by their inhabitants? How did it come to this turn of events? The biblical narrative. We start from what is told in the Bible. Sodom and Gomorrah are two of the 5 plain cities mentioned in Genesis, subjected to Chedorlaomer of Elam, which rebelled against him. At the Battle of Sodom, Chedorlaomer defeated them and took many prisoners, including Lot, the nephew of the Jewish patriarch Abraham. Abraham gathers his people, rescues Lot, and frees the cities. Later, God forewarns Abraham that Sodom has the reputation of a wicked city. Abraham asks God,
"Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked?"
Genesis 18:23. Starting with 50 people, Abraham negotiated with God to spare Sodom if so many righteous people were found. However, he constantly reduces this number due to the impossibility of finding so many righteous people in the city. And in the end, God is inclined to spare the city if he finds only 10 righteous people. Abraham fails even then. God sends 2 angels to destroy Sodom. Lot welcomes them into his home, but all the men of the town surround the house and demand that he surrenders the visitors so they can know them. Lot then offers his virgin daughters to the mob to do with them as they will, but they refuse and threaten to do worse to Lot. The angels strike the crowd and blind them. The next morning, the angels took Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters by the hand and led them out of the city, telling them to flee to the hills. Lot states that he is not sure if they will make it because the hills are too far away. He asks them to go to Zoar instead. Then God rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah and the whole plain, Genesis 19:24 and 25. Lot and his 2 daughters successfully reached safety, but his wife ignores the angel's warning not to look back and becomes a pillar of salt. Besides Sodom and Gomorrah, there were 3 other cities on the plain. The 5 cities were called the cities of the plain. The other 3 were called Admah, Zeboim, and Segor. Admah and Zeboim were also destroyed for their sins, but they are not as famous as Sodom and Gomorrah. Segor, on the other hand, was spared God's wrath. The sin of Sodom. Sodom, Gomorrah, and the cities of the plain in general have been used historically and in contemporary discourse as metaphors for same-sex male love and are the source of the English word sodomite, which is taken to be a derogatory term for male homosexuals, which is used in a legal context under the label crimes against nature, as well as to describe the love act between men. This is based on an exegesis of the biblical text, interpreting the divine judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah as a punishment for the sin of same-sex love and debauchery prevailing in these and other cities of the plain. A number of modern scholars challenge this interpretation by referring to Ezekiel 16:49 and 50.
"Such was the quilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, surplus food, and prosperity, but did not help the poor and needy. They became proud, and they did abominable things before me. Therefore I removed them when I saw it."
Such is the other version of interpretation and connecting the punishment rather with sins such as arrogance and lack of hospitality. Historical examination. From a historical perspective, it has been suggested that if the legend really has a historical basis, the cities may have been destroyed by a natural disaster. One such theory is that the Dead Sea was devastated by an earthquake between 2100 and 1900 BC. This suggests the possibility that the cities were destroyed by an earthquake, especially since they were located along a major fault, such as the Jordan Rift Valley. However, the theory finds no support in practice, as no traces or evidence of seismic activity have been found to confirm it. So this theory, as well as the suggestion that the cities were destroyed by a volcano, are considered unlikely. Possible sites. The ancient Greek historian Strabo wrote about local residents living near Moassad who said that there were once 13 inhabited cities in this area, among which was Sodom the metropolis. Strabo identifies a hill of limestone and salt at the southwest end of the Dead Sea, as well as the ruins of nearby Harbet Ustum as the site of the biblical Sodom. The Jewish historian Josephus identified the Dead Sea in geographical proximity to the ancient biblical city of Sodom. He mentions the lake by its Greek name Asphaltus. In 1973, Walter E. Rust and R. Thomas Schaub investigated a number of possible sites for the cities, such as Bab Edra, Numaira, Al-Safi, Haifa, and Khirbet al-Khanazir. According to Schaub, Numaira was destroyed in 2600 BC, which differs from Bab Edra's dated period of 2350 to 2067 BC. In 1993, Nancy Lapp of Pittsburgh Theological Seminary reported that there was no Bronze Age habitation of Fife, but only an early Bronze Age cemetery with Iron Age walls. She reports, during the last season of excavations on the Dead Sea Plain, 1990 to 1991, the walled city of Haifa was explored and the cemetery that extended east of it was excavated. Recent studies have shown that the visible structures of the walled site belong to the Iron Age or the Roman period. Sodom and Gomorrah in Judaism. Although later Jewish prophets name the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah as adultery, pride, and ruthlessness, most exegesis related to the city's history see it as an example of judging same-sex relationships. Rabbi Basil Herring, who served as head of the Rabbinical Council of America from 2003 to 2012, shared that rabbinic literature and the modern Orthodox position maintain that the Torah condemns same-sex intercourse as an abomination. Richter Norton views the classical Hebrew texts as emphasizing the cruelty and inhospitality of the inhabitants of Sodom to the stranger. Rabbinic texts confirm that the Sodomites committed economic crimes, blasphemy, and bloodshed. Other extra-biblical crimes committed by Sodom and Gomorrah include extortion to cross a bridge or swim a river. The victims themselves are severely punished, not the perpetrators of the crimes, with the victim being forced to pay for the bloodshed of the perpetrator. For these reasons, the judges from the two cities were called Shakre, liar, Zayafi, forger, and Mazaldina, a perverter of justice. Eliezer is said to have fallen victim to similar legal injustice after Sarah sent him to Sodom to report on Lot's welfare. The citizens, for their part, regularly tortured foreigners who sought shelter. As a result, many people refrained from visiting Sodom and Gomorrah. The beggars who settled in the two cities to find refuge were treated similarly. Citizens donated marked coins to them, but by proclamation, it was forbidden to provide any goods or services in exchange for the marked money. After the beggar starved to death, the citizens who had given him the money were allowed to take it back, provided they could recognize him. The beggar's clothes were also provided as a reward for any citizen who successfully defeated his opponent in a street fight. Providing bread and water to the poor was also a capital offense. Two girls, one poor and the other rich, went to the well, and the first gave the second her pitcher of water, receiving in return a bowl of bread. When this became known, both were burned at the stake. According to the book of Yashar Paltit, one of Lot's daughters was burned alive for giving bread to a poor man. Her cries reached the heavens. Another woman was similarly executed at Admah for giving water to a traveler who intended to leave the city the next day. When the scandal was revealed, the woman was stripped naked and smeared with honey. This attracted bees, which stung her until she died. Her cries rose to the heavens. Legend has it that this is the turning point that provoked God to condemn Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot's wife, who was a native of Sodom, did not approve of her husband welcoming foreigners into their home. Her asking for salt from the neighbors alerted the crowd that came to Lot's door. It was for this as punishment that she was turned into a pillar of salt. Sodom and Gomorrah in Islam. Lot flees the city with his daughters, and his wife is killed by a stone. The Quran contains 12 references to the people of Lut, the biblical Lot, referring to the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah, and their destruction by God. It is mostly associated with their same-sex practices, for which the Quran claims that they were the first beings to commit such an act. On the other hand, some modern Western scholars argue that the reason for the destruction of the cities was a combination of sexual assaults, violation of the law of hospitality, and committing robberies. Lot's people knowingly transgressed God's boundaries. Lot only prayed to God to be saved from doing like them. Then Gabriel met Lot and told him that he must leave the city quickly, as God had given this order to Lot to save his life. It is written in the Quran that Lot's wife remained because she transgressed the law. She met her fate in the cataclysm, and only Lot and his daughters were saved during the destruction of their city. In 2000, a British archaeological expedition under the leadership of Michael Sanders managed to determine the most accurate coordinates of the ruins of Sodom at the bottom of the Dead Sea. The search was conducted in the northeastern water area. This completely refutes the Bible-based theory that Sodom was located at the southern end of the Dead Sea. The discovery of the British scientists is based on satellite images from NASA, which captured an anomaly at the bottom of the Dead Sea off the coast of Jordan. In December 2010, a Russian company received permission from a Hashemite kingdom of Jordan to carry out geological exploration in the area where Sodom and Gomorrah are supposedly located. It was located in the vicinity of the ancient city of Bab Edra, where, according to the NASA images, the ruins of the city are concentrated. Later, in 2012, a joint Russian-Jordanian archaeological expedition was organized. The Russian team was chosen because of its deep-sea equipment, durable enough to withstand the salt water of the Dead Sea. Scientists still share different versions of the reasons for the destruction of the cities, from earthquakes to the fall of a large meteorite. Research continues to this day. The Garden of Eden is one of the oldest and most mysterious myths in human history. It is said to be a heavenly place where Adam and Eve lived in harmony with God and nature. But where was it located? Over the years, many have tried to locate it by studying ancient texts, archaeological finds, and even the Bible. From Babylonian records to the writings of early Christian monks, the search for the Garden of Eden is a journey of exploration and intrigue that has captivated humans for centuries. Although its exact location is still a mystery, recent discoveries may have brought us closer to finding its true home. Join us as we look at the different theories about where the Garden of Eden might be located. What is the Garden of Eden? The Garden of Eden is a mythical place where Adam and Eve lived before they were cast out of paradise. It is described in the book of Genesis in the Bible. The paradise abode is also known as the Forbidden Garden. This is where God planted the first two human beings, Adam and Eve. In the garden, God also places the tree of knowledge, from which He tells Adam and Eve not to eat. In the end, the two were kicked out of paradise because they disobeyed God by eating from the tree. The Garden of Eden is often associated with the Euphrates River and Iraq. Many scholars suggest that the ancient city of Babylon, located along the river, was the Garden of Eden. This theory is supported by the fact that in the book of Genesis, the Euphrates River is described as the one from which the waters in Eden flowed. The Bible suggests that the ancient city of Babylon is where the Garden of Eden is located. Babylon is along the Euphrates River and is surrounded by beautiful gardens. It is not the first time that biblical descriptions of the location of long-lost places have been taken seriously. This was exactly the case with the ancient biblical city of Jericho. Searched everywhere for decades, but in the end, it turned out to be exactly where it is described in the Bible scriptures. Origin of the name Eden. The name Eden is believed to be derived from the Akkadian word Edenu, which is a description of happy land. Some scholars also suggest that the Hebrew name Eden has its roots in the Sumerian language, in which Eden may mean plain. Another theory is that the name Eden is derived from the Persian word Idan, which means wild, uninhabited place. Another hypothesis claims that Eden was the name of a city in the Assyrian Empire, although this has not been proven. There are various theories about the origin of the name, but no one is sure of the exact origin and meaning. Description of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden was a place where flowers bloomed, animals roamed freely, and there was no pain or sadness. It was a place of plenty, where there was no shortage of food or water. There were no diseases and old age. The first people could live forever. The garden is described as situated in the east. 4 rivers flowed from the Garden of Eden, which provided water to all the surrounding lands. The Garden of Eden was also a place where there was no sun or moon, but rather a bright, fluorescent-like light that provided all the light needed. The Garden of Eden was a place of great beauty and splendor. There was no death and no evil. Theories about the location of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is one of the most debated topics in history. Scientists of every generation have tried to figure out its location, and there are various theories about it. One of them is that the Garden of Eden is located in Africa, because the Bible was written by people living in the Middle East. Another states that it was located in the Middle East, since the Bible says that this is the east where the sun rises. Some think that the garden is located on the Indian subcontinent, as there is also a version that the word Eden is derived from the ancient Indian word vidyut, which means abundance. These are just 3 of the many theories about the location of the Garden of Eden. No one knows for sure where it was. Revelations in the old manuscripts. Let us look for the Garden of Eden in the discovered ancient scriptures of God. The oldest surviving manuscripts of the biblical story of the Garden of Eden are found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. They are a collection of scrolls found in caves near Qumran. If you want to know more about them, you can watch our detailed video, The Ancient Dead Sea Scrolls, The Untold Story. The biblical account of the Garden of Eden is found in the book of Genesis, which is dated to about 400 BC. This is also confirmed by the oldest surviving manuscript of biblical history containing the account of the Garden of Eden, the book of Ezekiel, which is dated around 600 BC. A team of researchers discovered fragments of the book in the Genizat of Cairo at the archives of the Ben Ezra Synagogue, which was supposed to reveal the true location of the Garden of Eden. According to the book of prophet Ezekiel, the divine garden was located in the Persian Gulf, in the territory of present-day Iraq. The book reveals that the 4 rivers flowing out of the Garden of Eden are the Euphrates, the Tigris, the Gihon, and the Hiddekel. The Euphrates and Tigris rivers are located in Iraq, which confirms that the biblical garden, according to the prophet, is indeed located in Iraq. The book also reveals that the Garden of Eden was located in the land of the Chaldeans. The land of the Chaldeans is what is known today as Iraq. The garden is also mentioned in the ancient biblical book of Genesis, which states that it was located east of the land of Shinar, which is now modern Iraq. According to the account in Genesis 2:4 through 3:24 of the creation and the fall of mankind, rivers flowed from Eden to the 4 corners of the world. God created Adam from the dust of the earth, then planted the Garden of Eden with the tree of life and the forbidden tree of the knowledge of good and evil in its center. God gave Adam the task of tending the garden and naming the animals in it, giving him the only commandment not to eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because he lacked a helper in his work, a tired Adam fell into a deep sleep, and God took a rib from him and created his companion, Eve. The 2 were innocent people and lived shamelessly without clothes as husband and wife. However, the serpent in the garden tricked Eve, who ate the forbidden fruit and gave some of it to Adam. With newly opened eyes, they realized their nakedness and put on fig leaves as clothing. Immediately after that, God noticed their transgression and gave them punishments. For the woman, pains in childbirth and submission to the man, and for the man, rejection of the land for which he has to work and sweat in order to feed himself and others. God clothed them with animal skins and then banished them from the Garden of Eden by sending an angel armed with a flaming sword to prevent their return. The book of Revelation in the New Testament describes the Garden of Eden as the place where Enoch, who walked with God, lived, and as a place that is in the mountains. The mountains in the Garden of Eden can be defined as the mountains of the Tigris and Euphrates, described as the 2 great rivers flowing out of the garden. They flow through the Middle East, including Iraq. Recent discoveries in ancient books about the Garden of Eden. Edikbil and Amnan-i-Savari are 2 civilizations that existed in Iraq at the time of the Garden of Eden. Both civilizations were located along the Euphrates River. At the end of the 19th century, archaeologists discovered in Iraq several ancient tiles dating back to the time of the Divine Garden. The tiles describe the Garden of Eden and its location. One of the tablets suggests that the Garden of Eden was located in the mountains along the Euphrates River. Another ancient tablet found in Iraq suggests that the Garden of Eden was located in the city of Ur. It was located in the southern part of the country and was a center for the worship of the moon god. This leads many people to believe that the Garden of Eden is located right there. Versions and hypotheses. Archaeologists claim that the Sumerians lived in a beautiful land where gardens bloomed all year and trees were evergreen. The amazing climate allowed them to harvest several crops a year, and the deep rivers supplied the inhabitants of the kingdom with much-needed water. The Sumerians managed to reach incredible heights in the development of culture, being credited with various inventions and achievements. Some seekers of alternative theories interpret this as a divine gift, inherited as compensation for the expulsion from Eden. Indeed, in Sumerian legends, there is a story about the land of the gods that lies to the east of the kingdom. This was everything one could wish for. However, due to the global flood, the heavenly place has disappeared from the face of the earth and now lies at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Science makes an amazing analogy between the description of Eden in the Sumerian legends and the Bible. Moreover, the dates of the flood coincide in the two sources, which explains the disappearance of the Garden of Eden. Was this place the ancestral home of mankind? Is this the Garden of Eden? And where exactly should we look for it? The Garden of Eden is one of the world's most fascinating mysteries. The location of this ancient paradise has been debated for centuries. There are many theories as to where it might be. However, the true location of this mythical garden remains a mystery. We can only guess whether scientists and archaeologists will soon take the guidance given by God's scriptures more seriously. If you enjoyed this video, we recommend you watch our videos on Hanging Gardens of Babylon, Myth or Reality, and the most ancient city in the world, Jericho, the biblical city. Support us by subscribing to the channel.